Hi guys, Michelle again. I'm excited to provide everyone with the final results of my course project that my son Kai helped me with. Just to recap, Kai is 10 years old. He's the oldest of my 3 kids. He's enjoyed playing lacrosse for the last 2 spring seasons and also tackle football for the last 3 fall seasons. He's tried several other sports, such as wrestling, indoor skydiving, and even golf. But he truly enjoys the team aspect that lacrosse and football offer him. He's a big kid, standing 5 feet 1 inch tall. He's solid muscle, and he is full of confidence. So Kai was just above the 40th percentile for running the mile in his age group. That was back in August. And when we started the course project, he was able to run the mile in 10 minutes and 27 seconds. So that meant that 60% of kids could run the mile faster than Kai. And he indicated that he didn't want to finish first, but that he dislikes finishing last. And that prompted him to ask me for some help. And at the beginning of the project, we didn't know why Kai was running at that pace. And part of our work together was to evaluate his baseline running ability, including things such as how hard he's breathing after he runs, what his running stride looks like, how much he's sweating, and whether he experienced side stitches during running. Once we had determined why he was running at his then current pace, we would know exactly what to do to help him build up his speed and possibly his endurance as well. So some of the reasons behind why this is so important to me and Kai is that so many kids today just don't get enough exercise or eat nutritious meals. And teaching them good habits related to diet and exercise now enables them to grow strong and encourages lifelong well-being. And according to the American Psychological Association, there's approximately 17 million kids that are food insecure, and a third of children ages 6 to 17 are overweight, and only about 30% of kids in that same age group exercise more than 20 minutes a day. So this translates to increased food insecurity for future generations, increased mortality rate for overweight children becoming adults, and perhaps even more generations of children not exercising enough. So parents need to lead by example and get kids active for at least 60 minutes a day. So the improvement goal for this project was to get Kai running the mile in at least 8 minutes and 19 seconds. By Thanksgiving. And running at that rate, Kai would be in the 75th percentile for his age group, and that would be a 35% improvement in only 74 days. So this meant that he and I had quite a bit of work to do, but with our combined focus and drive, I was confident that we could make this happen for him. This project not only helped Kai learn how to improve his running rate, but it also helped him build important life skills related to problem identification and resolution as well. So over the course of the project, Kai and I tracked data consistently related to his time, distance, speed, and heart rate. In the first 3 weeks, we also tracked additional data to gain a baseline understanding of why Kai was running at his current rate. And that baseline data included his breathing rate, his degree of sweating, the presence or absence of physiological complaints, and run stride comparison to the standard that we found. This is a look at our original action plan. You can see that we had a busy first week, visiting the pediatrician, developing a milestone chart to track progress, and running that baseline mile to get a starting point. Then we spent a few weeks using a check sheet to track data that we gathered. And finally, we spent a couple of weeks post-improvement implementation tracking data so we could compare it to our baseline. Some of the potential pitfalls and countermeasures we called out at the beginning of the project were loss of motivation, and this was perhaps the one pitfall that Kai and I were most at risk for. After all, he is 10 years old and did indicate that running was one of his least favorite things to do. So to keep this from becoming a loss, Kai and I used a milestone chart to celebrate all the small improvements he made along the way. And then injuries was another category of pitfalls that Kai and I considered. This would have included things like sprained ankles, strained muscles, or side stitches. And to keep injuries from derailing our progress, Kai and I needed to be consistent with our warm-ups, our eating habits, and we needed to keep in close contact with his pediatrician. Related to weather, of course we live in the high desert in eastern Oregon, and our seasons change pretty abruptly. So on days when it's too cold or too hot or otherwise inclement, we had planned on utilizing the indoor recreation center track for running. Then we worked on getting a little focus from a fishbone diagram. And as you know, Ishikawa first introduced the cause and effect diagram in 1968. And when you set out to solve a problem, a fishbone diagram can definitely help structure your thoughts. I thought this was a good fit as I started to search for issues to focus on and to try to help Kai improve his running percentile. I chose to use the 6 main categories first defined for this type of diagram by Ishikawa, and those were methods, equipment, people, materials, measurement, and environment. And from these categories, I identified several possible causes for each one to go wrong. And some of the causes were easy to weed out as not contributing to the effect. But there were 2 causes, however, that seemed plausible and could be items that Kai and I could easily measure and improve. And those were that Kai had issues with not knowing what a good run stride looked like, and that the timing of his pre-run meals was poor. In regards to pre-run meals, specifically we wanted to know what was in the meal, when it was eaten in relation to running, and if Kai experienced any negative physiological symptoms, such as side stitches or nausea. With regards to stride quality, we wanted to know if Kai had his arms moving back and forth along the correct positioning of 45 degrees and 135 degrees. We also wanted to evaluate his pedal landing position, and he should strive to land on the ball of his foot each time, not his knees or his toes. Finally, we needed to find out if Kai exhibited high knees while he was running. Kai's pediatrician wanted to be sure we were monitoring vital signs, such as heart rate, breathing rate, and degree of sweating. And he said that Kai's heart rate should be between 100 and 160 beats per minute. He should be breathing between 30 and 50 times per minute, and he should exhibit a moderate degree of sweating. And anything outside those parameters could mean that Kai was physiologically strained. For ambient temperature, the pediatrician also recommended that Kai not run in temperatures that exceeded 90 degrees. And if the temperature rose above that and the air quality was poor, we'd need to get Kai into the recreation center for running. And then we also tracked Kai's time each day he ran the mile. And that enabled us to calculate his speed in miles per hour, using, of course, his constant distance of 1 mile. So Kai and I collected baseline data for 3 weeks. I kept track of all of the results on a spreadsheet. So we ran every other day, excluding Saturday, because those were Kai's game days for football. Our temperature was never above 90, so we never had to utilize the indoor running track at the rec center. And then the next segment of data we collected was related to his pre-run eating habits. And I tracked how many minutes before each run he ate, what he ate, and whether or not he complained during the run of side stitches or nausea. I also kept a close eye on his stride quality, and that was his arm position while running, whether or not he landed on the ball of his foot as opposed to his toes, and making sure that his stride knee got above his grounded knee each time he stepped. Next, I tracked his time, multiplied that by his constant distance of 1 mile, and calculated his speed in miles per hour. Finally, just as the doctor requested, we recorded his heart rate, his breathing rate, and degree of sweating captured here on the chart. So we knew whether or not Kai was having any physiological trouble. And then here's just a quick look at some ways to effectively represent data visually. Some of our options include control charts, histograms, and Pareto charts. So control charts, like the one in the middle there, are comprised of data that are plotted in chronological order so that they can be evaluated for changes in a process over time. And then histograms, over on the left, when data are numerical, or I'm sorry, over on the right, you can see that when data are numerical and you want to see how often a particular value occurs, that's best represented by a histogram. And then on the left there, when you want to analyze how often a particular cause happens in a process, and you have many possible causes to evaluate, the Pareto chart can help bring focus. And first we took an in-depth look at Kai's meal selections and the timing of those meals. We can see in the Pareto chart here that according to our baseline data, Kai was most successful during his run when he ate only a snack and a bottle of water, about 15 minutes or so before his run. And so that was one change we knew we needed to implement during the analyze and improve phase. We also wanted to focus on improving Kai's stride quality during the course of the project. So the Pareto chart here has data that we generated from our measure phase, showing us that Kai struggles with all three good stride quality attributes. So some of the interpretations we made from our initial data were that whenever Kai ate a full meal before a run, no matter the minutes prior to the run, he developed negative physiological symptoms. And Kai experienced the least negative physiological symptoms when he ate a snack less than 20 minutes before the run. And then we also interpreted that Kai's running stride didn't match standard. His arm position never matched standard. His pedal landing position was correct only 41% of the time. And he only had high knees during his stride 25% of the time. So the first change we made in this journey was related to Kai's pre-run meal habits. For 8 weeks, we focused on ensuring Kai ate a granola bar and drank a bottle of water about 15 minutes before his running activity. And we decided on this change due to the baseline data that we gathered in the first 4 weeks. And we can see here that whenever Kai ate a full meal before a run, no matter the minutes prior to the run, he developed negative physiological symptoms. A little information about side stitches here. It's interesting that the pain is caused by a spasm of the diaphragm muscle. And the diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. And it moves up and down when you inhale and exhale. So as your right foot strikes the ground, gravity forces your internal organs downward as well. And some of these organs are attached to the diaphragm, which in turn pulls the diaphragm downward. So now if you're exhaling at the same time as your right foot hits the ground, the diaphragm is being pulled upward as your lungs contract. So this creates a stretching of the diaphragm muscle, and also the ligaments that are attached to your internal organs, and that in turn causes the pain. And this of course worsens if your stomach is full. So when we compare our baseline data to the data we collected over the last 10 weeks, we can see that ensuring Kai stuck to just a small snack consisting of granola and a bottle of water, that he rarely had any negative physiological symptoms during his run, and in fact, he only experienced side stitches twice during the analyze phase, which was only 8% of the time. This was compared to the number of times he complained of side stitches during the measure phase, which amounted to 75% of the time. This was an overall 67% improvement. We also focused on improving Kai's stride quality, of course. The data generated from our measure phase shows us that Kai struggles with all 3 stride quality attributes. And when we look at a histogram of our baseline data, we can see that Kai struggles most often with arm and knee positioning, but that his pedal landing position is about half and half between good and poor. And then if we take it a little further and look at Kai's stride quality on a root cause map like the one here, we can see if we follow it all the way to the right, that his pedal landing position should be the easiest stride quality attribute to improve. Dissecting that a little more and completing a YY exercise, we see that pedal landing position is an even split between good and poor because gravity and body stability force Kai's feet to land on the ground whether or not Kai thinks about it, making this a passive attribute for Kai, and it requires little concentration from him. So that's why we decided to focus on his pedal landing position during the analyze and improve phase. Simply put, we knew we could win on that one, but we weren't sure how much improvement we would see in his runtime. Comparing the baseline data collected during the measure phase and our current phase data, we see that Kai was now able to land his feet with good positioning more than 80% of the time. And that's almost a 40% improvement. And then if we look at the data on an ANOVA table, our critical value for this data is 4.171. And since 4.171 is greater than both F statistics results, we can reject our null hypothesis and assume that the alternative hypothesis is correct because the means were not equal. In other words, there's a significant difference brought on by the improvements we made, but we have to do further analysis to uncover which mean is different and why. Some of the options we have to do that are Tukey's HSD, Fisher's LSD, and also the Bonferroni-Duncan's MRT. Well, we are excited to report that with just the 2 simple improvements, eating the right thing at the right time, and concentrating on where his feet were landing, Kai surpassed his goal of reducing the time it took to run the mile. He's now in the 75th percentile for his age group and running the mile in only 8 minutes and 18 seconds. But we both know that he can still improve and reduce that time even more. So over the next few months, we're going to continue monitoring all of our current variables, continue to focus on eating the right snack at the right time before runs, and we'll continue to concentrate on his pedal landing position. We're also going to work on improving possibly another aspect of his stride quality, perhaps knee positioning, and then maybe go after arm positioning last. And I think that covers it for my entire course project. Thanks for listening in, and let me know if you guys have any questions or other feedback for me. Thanks.